Be ready for dictation. Start in Gannon, Dunkerley and Company versus State of Rajasthan reported once again. This court was faced with a host of questions pertaining to the imposition of tax on the transfer of property in goods involved in the execution of works contracts. One of the contentions raised herein was that after the enactment of the 46th Amendment, no amendment was brought to the Act 1956 applying its provision to the transfer of property in goods involved in the execution of the works contracts. Consequently, Section 3, 4 and 5 of the Act 1956 would not be applicable to such transfers. This court held as the legislative power of the states under entry 54 of the state list is subject to two limitations, one flowing from the entry itself, which makes the said power subject to the provisions of entry 92A of list 1 and the other flowing from the prohibition contained in Article 286 under entry 92A of list 1. Parliament has the power to make a law in respect of taxes on sale or purchase of goods other than newspapers where such sale or purchase takes place in the course of interstate trade or commerce. The levy and collection of such taxes governed by Article 269. This shows that the legislative power under entry 54 of the state list is not available in respect of transactions of sale or purchase which take place in the course of interstate trade or commerce. Similarly, clause bracketed 1 of Article 286 prohibits the state from making a law imposing or authorizing the imposition of a tax on the sale or purchase of goods where such sale or purchase takes place bracketed A outside the state or bracketed B in the course of the import of goods into or export of the goods out of the territory of India. As a result of the said provision, the legislative power conferred under entry 54 of the state list does not extend to imposing tax on a sale or purchase of goods which takes place outside the state or which takes place in the course of import or export of goods. The limitation imposed by the Constitution in view of the aforesaid limitation imposed by the Constitution on the legislative power of the states under entry 54 of the state list It is beyond the competence of the state legislature to make a law imposing or authorizing the imposition of a tax on transfer of property in goods involved in the execution of a works contract with the aid of subclause bracketed B of clause of Article 366 in respect of transactions which take place in the course of interstate trade or commerce or transactions which constitute sales outside the state or sales in the course of import or export. Consequently, it is not permissible for a state to frame the legislative enactment in exercise of the legislative power conferred by Entry 54 in State List in a manner as to assume the power to impose tax on such transactions and thereby transgress these constitutional limitations apart from the limitations referred to above, which curtail the ambit of the legislative competence of the state legislatures. There is clause bracketed 3 of Article 286 which enables Parliament to make a law placing restrictions and conditions on the exercise of the legislative power of the state under Entry 54 in State List in regard to the system of levy, rates and other incidents of tax. Such a law may be in relation to bracketed A goods declared by Parliament by law to be of special importance in interstate trade or commerce or bracketed B to taxes of the nature referred to in subclauses bracketed B, bracketed C and bracketed D of clause of article. When such a law is enacted by Parliament, the legislative power of the states under Entry 54 in State List has to be exercised subject to the restrictions and conditions specified in that law in exercise of the power conferred by Article 286 bracketed 3 bracketed A. Parliament has enacted sections 14 and 15 of the Central Sales Tax Act 1956. No law has, however, been made by Parliament in exercise of its power under Article 286 bracketed 3 bracketed B. The question is whether in the absence of an amendment in the Central Sales Tax Act specifically applying its provisions to a transfer of property in goods involved in the execution of a works contract, the provisions of sections 3, 4 and 5 contained in chapter 2 can be held applicable to such a transfer. In this context, it may be mentioned that prior to the 46th Amendment, a distinction was being made between a works contract, which was entire and indivisible, and a works contract composed of two distinct and separate contracts, one for transfer of materials and other for payment of remuneration for services and for work done. Stop.